If you've ever driven through Waterbury, Connecticut, you may have spotted a large cross atop a hill. Perhaps unknowingly, you've just passed Holy Land, USA, a defunct theme park that would draw in over 40,000 visitors annually at its height. Designed as a place where people of all walks of life could find peace and relaxation, after the creator's death in 1986, the attraction would slowly decay into a creepy place, drawing in the curious, the destructive, and even the site of 2 murders. This is Holy Land, USA. Beginning construction in 1957, Holy Land, USA was the dream of Waterbury native John Baptiste Greco. John had gone to school to become a priest, but was forced to drop out after not having enough money and falling ill. He would get a scholarship to become a lawyer, but religion remained his passion. He would form the group Catholic Campaigners for Christ, whose goal was to put Christ back in Christmas. Greco had spent a number of years as a child living in Italy, where it was traditional for families to construct nativity scenes, a tradition he brought back to America. People loved his nativity scenes so much, in 1943 he got the idea to make something more permanent. As this was during World War II, materials were scarce, but post-war, many people were leaving Waterbury as the factories for artillery shells were closing down, leading Greco to purchase almost 18 acres of land at a low cost.
I like the skewed. This old. It's some lady looking out, I think, this here. Here people wrote something with the rocks. I don't know if that's just their names, Owen or something. This tree. And then up to the big cross.
The first thing to be erected was the 32-foot neon cross in 1956, which saw a crowd of 1,000 people in attendance at what that time was known as Bethlehem Village. On December 1st, 1958, the grand opening of the 125-building park would be held. Admission was free, but donations of 50 cents for parking were accepted. Construction had utilized volunteers and taking place on the weekends, when John was not working in his law office. He based the design off biblical maps and photographs, as well as personal visits to Bethlehem and Jerusalem, which he would bring back dirt and rocks for his park during. Built out of whatever materials they were able to acquire, towers were made out of water heaters, department store mannequins were dressed up as saints, salvaged bricks or concrete blocks were stacked for buildings, and churches would donate other religious items. The theme park continued to grow, importing a statue of the Good Shepherd from Italy and receiving the Vatican's display from the 1964 World's Fair. Dozens of scenes, including David in the Lion's Den, the Temptations of Christ, and Jesus saving the 99 lost sheep, were all created. They also added a chapel, library, gift shop, cafeteria, and information center, though Greco stressed their goal was not to convert anyone, simply showcase the life of Jesus and open visitors to the stories of the Bible. By now, the park had been renamed first to Bible Land and finally Holy Land, USA, after it reached its peak in popularity in the 1960s. By the 1970s, Greco was getting too old to maintain the park by himself, and the Archdiocese would assign 2 nuns from the Religious Teachers Filippini to help him manage Holy Land, which was giving hour-long tours at this point. In 1974, the original 200-foot catacomb structure was demolished when the city widened the next-door I-84 highway, and Greco would rebuild the catacomb in a different direction. This footage from the 1970 film Wanda would preserve those original catacombs in a scene where the film's characters meet at this park.
Here on this site we have Saint Thecla, who was a disciple of Saint Paul.
It's like different times that things happened. Something gone there.
The same year those catacombs were forced to be moved, a series of fires would break out on the hill, resulting in several other exhibits being destroyed, including the Garden of Eden walkthrough, Gates of Damascus, and 2 towers from Jerusalem. Vandals would come in and damage many of the buildings during this time, and the neighborhood was earning a reputation as a dangerous place, with attendance half of what it had been the previous decade. In 1984, Greco would close the park with plans to update and expand, but 2 years later he would pass away at the age of 88, leaving Holy Land to the religious teachers Filippini, along with a multi-million-dollar trust to upkeep the property. Plans for a $13 million expansion were halted when the man who the nuns had hired to manage the finances took off with most of their money, leaving them unable to even maintain the property.
I was walking by and I didn't even notice them. A couple of deer chilling right there, just looking at me. It's got all these stone fences back here, but I don't think there actually is anything. But you can see it's like way back there too. Maybe they were just like gardens that never really got happened.
The first murder to occur here took place in 1988, when the body of 25-year-old Pedro Vicente would be found stabbed over 100 times with a screwdriver at the front gates. Another young man would be arrested for the crime shortly after, and drugs were believed to be the cause of the attack. When the chapel and catacombs were demolished, the community would protest, even threatening to chain themselves to the front gate to protect the park, and the diocese announced they had no plans for further demolition. But volunteers were not allowed to clean up the park for over a decade. But within a few years of that, the nuns would refuse volunteers yet again, as vandalism had increased again when the buildings were no longer buried in shrubbery. It would again sit abandoned until 2008, when the original cross was replaced with a 50-foot stainless steel one that was dedicated by the local archbishop. 2 years later, a horrific murder would occur at the base of that cross.
It was back on July 15, 2010, when then 19-year-old Francisco Cruz strangled and stabbed his friend 16-year-old Chloe Ottman to death underneath the cross at Holy Land here in Waterbury. The two had been out walking in the area the night Cruz killed her. Cruz eventually led investigators to her body and under a plea deal was sentenced to 55 years in prison. Her friends say they miss Chloe's smile and energy and say they could always count on her to be there for them.
She always would come up if somebody was down. She'd always make everybody smile, and that was a real big special quality of hers. She always made people smile no matter what was going on. So we're all going to be smiling tonight for you, Chloe.
It's amazing to think it's been a year since this happened. You remember how profound an impact this had on so many people here in the Waterbury community, obviously when a teenager dies. Well, today Francisco Cruz, learning his fate, walked into a Waterbury Superior courtroom wearing an orange jumpsuit. Now, usually in situations like this, Chris, as you well know, the accused here gets the chance to say something to the family. Cruz said nothing, did not say a word, did not apologize to any of Chloe's family, any of Chloe's friends. The judge telling Cruz today that where you wake up is where you will die, in jail. We'll have more coming up tonight at 5 and 6. For now, though, we are live in Waterbury. I'm Jamie Muro, News 8.
The same year Cruz was sentenced, the nuns would put Holy Land up for sale and move out of their convent at the base of the park. It would finally be purchased by a group formed by a local car dealer and the then mayor of Waterbury, who would yet again replace the cross with a 65-foot tall LED lighted one. The rest of the property would be cleared of its overgrowth, and small repairs were made, finally reopening to the public in 2014. Since that time, the park sits in a state of semi-arrested decay, allowing the grounds to be used for worship services, and 4th of July fireworks are launched from the hill each year. But even its owners agree that it exists more as a curio from a bygone era, saying the land is unlikely to ever become anything else, as the rocky hill terrain chosen by Greco that was perfect for replicating the Middle East would be too difficult to build any real buildings on. And so Holy Land sits, now decaying for longer than it was in operation. And even if it is not what it once was, Holy Land continues to draw in a variety of visitors, from the curious to the devout, keeping the dream of John Baptist Greco alive.